Greetings, everyone. Pete Pardo here from Sea of Tranquility. Welcome to another episode of The Monster's Den. Thursday night, we're here finally to talk about some of our favorite films from 1994. And once again, we are down a few guys tonight. So it's just going to be the three of us, and we're just going to do it. So here we got
Sorry.
Jamie Laszlo, Davy Gallagher, and joining myself here. And we're going to talk about, each going to talk about our favorite film of 94. Then another film that we like a lot that we kind of think should have kind of maybe done a little bit more, got a little bit more notice, acclaim, whatever. Yeah, that's what we're gonna do. And I also have before we finish the episode, I'll list Craig's picks. I've got Craig's picks as well. So yeah, how you guys doing? Hanging in
All
there?
right. Doing all right. All right, Davey.
There we go. All right, Jamie, kick us off with your favorite from 94 and then your kind of
Oh, you want me to do them both in one round?
yeah, do them both in one round. Yeah. What do you got?
All right. Well, this first movie, actually, both of these could be like don't get enough love movies, I think. But my first one was a really big deal when it came out, but it's forgotten now. So it'll be the one that I really like. And I've kind of had I don't want to say love-hate relationship with this film. I've had a love relationship with this film. And it's a werewolf movie we've never talked about on here, believe it or not. Never even brought it up in passing. And that is Mike Nichols' Wolf. Now, I saw this in the theater. All right. And it was, you saw the trailer is marketed as this action-packed werewolf movie. And my God, my favorite actor in the world is going to be a werewolf. So I went to the theater and I walked out disappointed. But I do remember, so I was 24 years old. I do remember thinking that was it was okay, but it was kind of like a grown up werewolf movie. So I have a feeling, even when I was 24, I had the feeling, I bet you when I see this when I'm older, I like it more. And by golly, that's exactly what happened. As I got older, I like it more. It's so if you watch this, maybe you saw it, maybe you didn't, maybe you didn't like it. But if you ever see it again, this is the thing you got to do. Instead of going into this movie going, it's going to be a werewolf movie, think of it as a Mike Nichols movie that happens to have a couple werewolves in it. Then you have a different mind frame going in, and maybe you appreciate it more. So it's his fourth movie with Jack Nicholson. He had Carnal Knowledge, The Fortune, and Heartburn. I mean, and this guy does not direct horror movies, right? He did like The Graduate and Working Girl and Postcards from the Edge, things like that. So you're getting a different perspective kind of in the horror genre. James Spader's in it, who's fantastic. She plays a snake in the grass so well. You got Michelle Pfeiffer, mega hot.
Oh
Like
yeah.
she's way beyond 10, right? She's got to be like 15 or a 16 in this movie. And you got Christopher Plummer in it, who's really good, who beat out Marlon Brando and Mick Jagger for that role, believe it or not. Uh, so another thing about this movie, I think Jack Nicholson is the last actor who could get away with having a love interest 20 years younger than him without it being creepy. Cary Grant could do it. It happened in the 40s and 50s all the time. I think the last guy to be able to do it was Jack. So, yeah. So it's a yuppie movie, 1994. Jack is works for a publishing company. He's the editor in chief or some shit like that, and he's a down and out kind of guy. So you don't get the transformation. You get Rick Baker doing the makeup, but you think you're going to get like what he did in American Werewolf in London, and you don't get that kind of transformation. What you get is a slow, steady transformation of the character Jack Nicholson plays from this kind of a loser into like a more confident badass guy. And that's where you get the fun. That's where the fun is in this movie. And when he does turn into a wolf, the makeup's very subtle. Same with James Spader. But I think since it's a character study, it's important to see the character through the wolf makeup, especially when they're fighting at the end. You want to see the two characters fighting each other. You just don't want to see two werewolves fighting each other. And people go off on the end like it seems out of place in this subtle movie, and all of a sudden you got like two wolves fighting and jumping. I guess they decided they need to have a werewolf movie somewhere in this werewolf movie, and they put it at the end. It kind of doesn't fit, but it's forgiving. Not everything in this movie works. There's a scene where Jack is howling on top of a rock that's kind of silly. It's up there with the Darth Vader no type thing. And I really don't buy that Michelle Pfeiffer's character is into Jack Nicholson, how she could be into his character. I mean, he's older, he's a pain in the ass. She didn't like him from the get-go, but like within 5 minutes time, she starts liking him. I don't know how that all works, but it's forgiving. You do have a classic Jack Nicholson scene that's up there with everything, hold the chicken scene from Five Easy Pieces. He pisses on James Spader in the bathroom, and he jumps back. James Spader, what are you doing? And he goes, I'm just marking my territory. You got in the way. I mean, that is just a beautiful scene. So that is my first one. I do want to say the 1994 horror movie that really freaked me out on a whole different kind of level. I don't know if I ever said this story before, but it was the summer of 1994, and I got off work. I'm 24 years old, and you want to talk about losers. I was 24 years old and waiting tables at Perkins Family fucking Restaurant. I know. So I get off work, and I'm like, I'm going to rent some movies. I rented 3 movies. This is in Beaver County, PA, right outside of Pittsburgh. So I went to this little independent place. There was no Blockbusters or Hollywood Videos around at the time. And I rented 3 movies, got home. I forget what I rented, but I opened one and it was the wrong movie. I was like, oh shit. It was The Unborn 2. So I was like, whatever, I'll watch it. I'll let them know tomorrow when I return it that it was the wrong movie, blah, blah, blah. So I let them know. I said, they gave me the right movie for free, and life went on. That was 1994. Let's fast forward to 1997. I am now living in Sterling, Virginia, no longer outside of Pittsburgh. And I am moving up in the world. I'm now bartending at Ruby Tuesday, moving on up. So I get off work, still a loser, hanging out with like 19-year-olds and 22-year-olds. Anyways, I always said at the restaurants, when everyone clocks in, you're pretty much the same age. So I get off work and I go and rent 3 movies. And I get home, and for the second time in my life, I open one of the movies and it's the wrong effing movie. And I shit you not, it was The Unborn 2. Different state, different year, different video, independent place that had nothing to do with the other store 3 years prior. Only 2 times it ever happened to me, and it was the same movie. It's the freakiest thing that ever happened to me. The chances had to be 1 in a zillion for that to happen. So yeah, Unborn 2 really freaks me out. And I keep the VHS on my desk or on my shelf just as a little memento to that episode.
Is the movie any good? I've never seen it.
No, it's not boring. I mean, it opens with a woman going into a park, going up to a little kid who's like, I don't know, 4, and shooting him in the head. And that's how it opens.
Alrighty then.
It's not good, but it's not boring. Right. Never seen the first one.
Crazy. So Unborn 2. Alrighty then. Davey, let's move over to you.
Well, good evening, everybody. My pick for the film of the year, if you will, in terms of horror, I think is a legitimately great film. And when this topic was first mooted, which feels like 10 years ago, the amount of time it's taken us to actually do this episode, but when this topic was first mooted, someone in the comments replied saying, why 1994? It was such a bad year for horror. I mean, you look at it, that's true. There's so many bad horror films around this time. and it's straight to video sequelitis all over the place. There's very little happening. But that makes it a little bit more interesting, I think, to try and find stuff. It's very easy to go to 1982 and pick The Thing or something like that, but to try and find some diamonds in the mine, a little bit more interesting. But my pick is definitely a diamond, and it's Die Machte der Waschen, or just because it's a German copy, but it's The Mouth of Madness, John Carpenter, which yeah, it's just a gem of a film.
Uh-oh. Did we lose him, or did you guys lose me?
You're okay.
This happens every once in a while. He'll come back.
Man, this 1994 show is just doomed. Holy
It's
cow.
doomed. It should have been 1984. Doomed.
Come back, Davey. Come back.
Yeah, but he'll have to get booted out. He'll have to refresh. He'll have to come back on. It takes about 4 minutes. Yeah. So,
all right.
You want me to go? Oh, I was supposed to do my next one anyways.
I was wondering. Yeah. So why don't you?
Yeah, I did, because I'm used to doing one around, Pete. You're changing shit on us. You want me to go back into my other one?
Yeah, go ahead.
And then let him finish up and do a second one?
Yeah, go ahead.
My second one is I don't know if this is underrated. I don't know if people hold this in high regards or not. I don't think they do, because I never hear people talk about it. But again, I don't have like a big circle of friends out there in the world that we talk about movies. So you guys are my circle of friends. I talk about movies. No one here ever brought it up. I could have went with sci-fi, fantasy, horror, or like a Hitchcockian thing. I went with the Hitchcockian thing. And when people think of Danny Boyle, they might think of Trainspotting, 28 Days Later, Slumdog Millionaire won Best Picture. I do like 127 Hours, which is really good. But do people ever bring up Shallow Grave?
No,
because I think this is his best movie. Have you seen it, Pete?
No.
Oh, good. Then maybe it is underrated. You got Ewan McGregor, very young in this movie. And he, along with 2 other roommates, they're looking for a 4th roommate. And they're snobby. This is a violent thriller that's also a black comedy. A black comedy that makes you laugh at times. Not all black comedies do that. This will make you laugh at times. So they look for a 4th roommate. They find him. He dies overnight and leaves behind in his room. He dies in his bed, full frontal nakedness, you see. But he leaves behind a big suitcase of money. And of course, the 3 tried to keep the money. And as we know in these kind of movies, like The Simple Plan that Sam Raimi made, which is a very underrated classic by Sam Raimi there, it never works out trying to keep the money with friends. Everyone's never on the same wavelength. No, this guy is freaking out. This guy has got different ideas. This guy's spending too much. It just never works out. So, of course, bad things happen, and you get a couple of thugs that are looking for the money. And of course, they eventually find the roommates, and bad things happen. But it's directed beautifully. It's written smartly. It's fast-paced. It's fun. The camera is always doing what it needs to do, not freezing, not going out like our friend Davey. The camera is doing everything it needs to do. It's placed exactly where it needs to be at all times. The budget isn't big on this movie. I'm talking about Shallow Grave, Davey. The budget isn't big on this movie, but Boyles does everything he can to make it feel like a bigger movie than it is, with simple techniques like a red light behind silhouettes as they're dismembering a body, a close-up of a hand with a flashlight behind it. You know how your hand looks almost like X-ray type thing. A light coming from the holes in the floor in the attic, which each light beam coming up. Simple things like that. They even incorporate the Wicker Man into this movie to create suspense in one scene. And there is another scene in this movie. I don't want to go too much into the plot because if you haven't seen it, there's a lot of twists and turns in this movie that's real fun to watch. And the acting is great. Um, there's a scene in this movie where a toy baby is like crawling on the floor and it's kind of creepy looking. And it seems to me, I can't prove it, but it seems to me this was a prelude to the baby in Train Spotting. Like Danny Boyle said, we had that toy baby in Shallow Grave. What if we got a real one and stuck it on the fucking ceiling? I bet you that would really work. So I can't prove that that's how the thought process was, but it seems that way. I think the movie gets better with age, and I think it's damn near a 4-star movie and one of the best thrillers of the 90s. One fault I have with this movie is that Ewan McGregor's character is a journalist for, like, I think a newspaper. And he just seems a little too obnoxious and unhinged to hold a job, let alone a journalist. I understand in today's time, it's almost a requirement to be unhinged to be a journalist. But in 1994, not so much. And it's just surprising that a person like that who acts that obnoxious would hold a job at a newspaper being a reporter. But other than that, great movie. Go check it out, Shallow Grave.
Cool. Yeah, Davey, I
What's
thought his Unborn 2 was his second pick, but it turns out it wasn't. So
Oh, yeah, that was just
There
my
you
little
go.
story I wanted to say.
That's why I dropped out to let him have his chance. And while I'm on the topic, though, uh, I've got a new router. If anyone out there knows how to fix this, please tell me. It seems to just clock off at the same time every night, which normally isn't a problem because it's when I'm sleeping, but it's also the same time
When
that
I
I
was having that
start.
issue, I would use my phone as the internet go into here and my laptop to feed off the phone. What's the word
Yeah,
for that?
it's
And it wouldn't go off.
there's
The
a
whole
hotspot.
Wi-Fi seems to go down. I don't know what it is.
So it goes off on your phone and everything. I don't
Yeah,
know.
like the iPad.
Hmm.
Maybe there's some
Hmm.
IT people in the audience.
Hopefully. So SOS. Where was I?
Anyway, in the Mouth of Madness.
Mouth of Madness, John Carpenter, surreal stuff. And by the way, Christopher Eccleston's fantastic in Shallow Grave, but he's not in this. Um, the start of this film, Sam Neill, I always think is underserved by American films. If you only know him for the likes of the Jurassic Parks and the films where he's quite bland. But whenever he's given the opportunity to do something really out there, he always rises to the occasion. And this is certainly out there. Essentially, he's an insurance investigator who is sent to find this writer called Sutter Kane. And it's a very thinly veiled Stephen King parody who was a friend of John Carpenter. Obviously, he adapted Christine and had worked on an aborted version of Firestarter in the 80s. But it's a very unusual film, even for the period. It feels quite unique. There's a very bleak apocalyptic tone, but a very surreal tone at the same time, where what is reality, what is fiction. There's a part where Sam Neill goes to the cinema and he's watching parts of the film that he's just been in. But it's never wanky about it. It's never one of those kind of this is quite pretentious. It all feels like it's coming from a very horror place, and it feels very much like an evolution of the same filmmaker who's done Prince of Darkness. John Carpenter's kind of developed these themes, and he's thrown in old references to things as always. The town where Sutter Kane is hiding out is Hobbs End, which is where Quatermass in the Pit well, first of all, the station in the film, but the neighborhood is called Hobbs End in the original Quatermass in the Pit. So he's picking old references, but it's nothing really like Quatermass. Though there is a little bit of the Quatermass conclusion in it, the last Quatermass, in that it feels very end of the world, very nihilistic. But essentially, the reason to watch it is the descent into madness of a character and how he almost bursts through the screen and takes you on this really bleak, odd, surreal journey, almost like Apocalypse Now in regards of it's a travel log, and you're never quite sure how much of it is an unreliable narrator, how much is actually happening. It's got that kind of vibe to it. The performances from the supporting cast, I mean, it's such an odd cast as well. You've got Charlton Heston in there for, for no real reason. It seems like you'd spend a lot of money to get him on board for no real reason. He's just the editor of Sutter Kane. You've got Bernie Casey in there. You've got Jürgen Prochnow from Das Boot as Sutter Kane himself. So it's a very strange cast. None of the Carpenter regulars really are in it. There'd be no room for Kurt Russell or anyone like that or Keith David. It's not that kind of film. It feels very one-off in his filmography. And I think it's just a stunning bit of cinema, which is really underrated John Carpenter. And if it had have come out in the 80s, I think it would be held much higher by the public in regard. Because I think some people had just written him off by this point, because this is the John Carpenter who's just done Memoirs of an Invisible Man, which no, 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 no. No, 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 no. But he met Sam Neill on that set, and that's where he got the idea to work with him on this. So, all's well that ends well on that. So yeah, highly recommended if people haven't seen it. My oddball choice, I rewatched it, and I remembered why I don't rewatch it very often, because I half want to recommend it and I half think it's absolutely terrible. It's I was going to say 1994, but that's kind of the topic of the day. So it's 1994's Funny Man, with Christopher Lee in the corner there. You can see him. A very Graham Humphreys cover here. His artwork's always very identifiable. It's extremely low budget, £50,000. So we're talking about the kind of budgets that Hammer had 40 years earlier. But this is 1994. This is a really odd little film where it's do you have Punch and Judy in America? Is that much of a thing? Yeah.
Long time ago, yeah.
So essentially, Funny Man is a kind of Punch character. There's a lot of Punch and Judy references in it. But he's essentially a Freddy Krueger type in this, the way they use him. He kills people, bumps off a group of people. So far, so slasher. So what? What makes it different is that the group of people that he bumps off are so bizarre. One of them's called Velma, and she's dressed like Velma from Scooby-Doo for no reason. None of the rest of them are anything to do with Scooby-Doo. And he's, again, kind of Freddy Krueger type if you just look at the character and his actions. But the way he talks, it's like a he talks a bit like Ozzy Osbourne, and he's got that kind of stammering personality to, "Hey, you're right, you're right." It's not got quips. He's not got he's not written like let's do our version of a Hollywood slasher villain, cool comebacks and things. He just seems like a bloke from up the pub, which is really weird. Like he stands about and just smokes cigarettes, even though he's a demonic figure called the Funny Man. It's a really strange way of doing it. I don't know what the idea was. Apparently, it came from a short, and it was much more horrific. And then the actor who plays the Funny Man was quite funny on set, and they decided to amp up the comedy a bit more and have him play it almost as get an end of the pier comedian type, where he's doing these very British jokes, which they're dated intentionally. He's doing it almost as a throwback act, as if he's on the Brighton Pier in the 1960s. It's a very bizarre little routine. And the characters that he's bumping off, he's doing it in such a ridiculous style. He shoots somebody in the back of their head, and their brains come through the front, complete with the glasses and the eyeballs still attached to the brain, going flying across the room. It's a really bizarre visual. But there's something quite compelling about it, where it almost feels like two people directed it, and one of them's a really good filmmaker, and the other one's Damon Leone, because half of it is really interesting visually. It's got that kind of late 80s going into early 90s aesthetic of, say, Hellraiser, Candyman, with the very cool feel, very lights coming from everywhere, very well lit, interesting color choices. But then the next scene feels as if it was staged by the local primary school. It's quite inept. And for that reason, it's quite interesting, I think, where it feels a bit like they ran out of money, but almost like it's directed by two totally different people and flung together. I'm really not sure it would hold up to anyone outside the UK, but it is on YouTube for free, so that's the good news. If you want to just see it, just to go, the fuck is this?
I've never
It's
heard
set, it's certainly a film that does that, and it's on Blu-ray. It's got Christopher Lee. Although don't get me wrong, he's in it for about 3.5 minutes, and that's been, bumping up the half, to be honest.
One 3.5 minute scene or a couple 30-second scenes here and there.
One 3 minute scene and then a bunch of 5 seconds, just to remind you. He's in it all the time, yeah, for 5 seconds at a time. Um, but it is interesting and it has got some real visual flair. It feels like someone's student film where they're saying, look what I can do with lights and look what I can do with atmosphere and tone and whatnot. But it wasn't. And nobody on here went on to do anything later on. It's not like Bernard Rose's early films, since I mentioned Candyman. It's not like anything like that. Or it's not like Danny Cannon's early stuff before he went on to Hollywood, etc. It just feels like this bizarre, strange little film that came and went, cost nothing, feels like it cost nothing. It's not as if I'm saying this is some lost masterpiece. It's just interestingly bizarre. And I don't know if I can recommend it because if we were doing a show about the worst of 1994, I'm just as likely to pick it. There's something so impossibly weird and interesting about it. I, I mentioned Damon Leone. There was a few times where I thought, this feels like a bunch of blokes up the pub said, let's do our own version of Terrifier, and then did. And I think that's why I kind of like it because it feels like a DIY project that people worked on in their spare time over the weekends and stuff, and somehow got Christopher Lee involved, and somehow it's on Blu-ray.
somehow.
Oh. Yeah,
Somehow, somewhere.
yeah, funny man. It's again on YouTube for absolutely nothing, so stick it into your Google machine and give it a watch for 10 minutes. And it's got everything in it. There's voodoo, there's great slasher stuff, there's terrible slasher stuff, there's really supernatural stuff, there's card tricks, there's um the funny man himself dressed in drag, so it's progressive. Yeah, strange little film. And by gum, when I was going through 1994, wasn't there a load of shit released that year?
Yes, strange year, right? Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. All right. Well, my first choice here, I'm actually stealing this one from Chris because I had my second choice was my number one, and my second choice originally was Jamie's number one. So look at how that worked out. Yeah. Yeah, somehow, yeah, whatever. Anyway, it all worked out fine in the end. So my first choice is a film by a guy named Michael Soavi, who also directed The Church and The Sect. It's a film called Della Morte dell'Amore, otherwise known as Cemetery Man. And probably more known for the fact that it stars a very, very young Rupert Everett. Is this his first role?
No, I'd been going for quite a while in British
Yeah,
films since then. Yeah.
yeah, but probably one of his. I think the first time I remember seeing him. I think, but maybe not. But I hadn't seen this film since it first came out. I remember renting it on VHS way back in the day and really enjoying it, but not seeing it in quite some time till the new 4K came out, and I recently watched it and getting ready to do this show, and it's pretty fun little wacky weird Italian zombie film, but it's
Wasn't it
like
a comic book? Was it a comic book?
not that I'm aware of.
I'm gonna go ahead. I'm gonna Google that.
but it could be. So basically, he plays this guy named Francesco Della Morte, and he is in charge of like a cemetery. That's why he's called Cemetery Man. And it's him and his kind of his assistant named Nagi, who steals the movie, in my opinion, who is, I guess, mentally disabled. We don't really know. They never really explained it. He really doesn't talk all that much, other than he goes "Nyak" all the time, right? That's basically what he says up until the end of the film, as a matter of fact. But he's a hilarious character who doesn't really do all that much, but that's what makes it so funny. Anyway, so they're kind of managing this cemetery, and how does zombies fit in, you might ask? Well, it really kind of starts with, at one point, he gets introduced to this very lovely young lady who, it turns out that her elderly husband had just passed away. And the two of them become kind of romantically linked. And then all of a sudden, we see the dead old husband come out of the ground as a zombie. And then all of a sudden, we start to see that there are these people coming back from the dead that keep popping up around in this town where they live in Italy, but yet nobody seems to want to. It's not like some other zombie movies where it's like, oh my God, it's the zombie apocalypse, it's happening. It's not really happening here. People aren't believe that it's happening, but basically, the two guys at the cemetery are basically just trying to keep the place open and deal with whatever's trying to come into the cemetery. So he winds up falling in love with this very beautiful young lady, and like I said, I'm not going to go through the whole story, but the Exodus sets it up perfectly. The ex-husband comes up from beyond the grave. They wind up killing the ex-husband, but he bites her, and she winds up dying. And then she, of course, turns into a zombie, but that's the love of his life now that he just met, whatever. So the whole story goes through this whole ordeal of them killing zombies as they come onto the cemetery, dealing with other people, higher ups in the town, and getting them to kind of understand what's going on. And it's a it's part, I would say it's kind of part comedy in a way. It's got
Oh
some
yeah, it's
great,
comedy. Yeah.
yeah,
Oh yeah.
it's got some great gore. Like I said, the Nagi character is he's just hilarious. Everything he does. I mean, the scene where he's like kind of like watching the TV and eating his spaghetti and whatnot, and there's like zombies coming in behind him, and Francesco's trying to kill him or whatever, and he winds up like destroying his TV, and he gets all upset about the TV. Never mind the fact that he probably could have gotten killed by the zombies or whatever. But really good film, very well made, looks great in 4K, by the way. Good amount of gore. Like I said, it's a zombie film, but the zombies don't take up like the entirety of the story. At its core, it's almost kind of like a love story between the two main characters, and then she constantly shows up throughout the film as like different people, but looking just like her and whatnot. So he's like haplessly in love with her, and he's impotent. There's this whole side story about that and whatnot. So it's really, really cool movie. And then it ends on a really, really weird note too,
Yeah,
which I won't give away. But really, really good. Highly recommend it. Good stuff from this year, 1994,
and not a comic book based on a novel.
based on a novel. Okay, well that makes sense. That makes sense. And then my kind of second pick, that a kind of a cool little oddity that I don't think this movie made any money. If it might have even been direct to video, I'm pretty sure it was. But I like this series up until a point, and I think this is probably the last film for me that I really enjoyed, and it kind of went off the rails. And that is Puppet Master 5. So of course, this is Full Moon features Charles Band.
Good old Chuck.
Yep, he loves making horror movies about little tiny terrors, is what I call them. So in the previous film, and one of the things I do like about this series, especially up until probably this film, is that the continuity was pretty good. Basically, where one ended, the next one picked up pretty much. So here you have this the continuation of the story, and I'm trying to remember what the name of the you had Toulon is now dead. He's the guy who controlled the puppets. but now his spirit lives in one of the puppets, and you had this demon named Sutek who's been kind of like trying to come into this world and winds up doing battle with the puppets, and he's got his little minions and everything like that. So here, from the first like film or two where the puppets are bad, now all of a sudden the puppets are kind of good, and the puppet characters in this film, and there's a lot of them. So you got Blade, you got Pinhead, Jester, Tunneler, Torch, Six Shooter, Decapitron, and Dark Totem. So there's a whole bunch of them. So they give like a lot of screen time to the puppets, and basically the whole story here is Rick, who's now, like I said, kind of like overseeing the puppets, and I guess Toulon is kind of giving him the from beyond the grave his approval to be the kind of master of the puppets, and he's trying to convince everybody else that there is this evil creature, this demon that's come to kind of take over the world and whatnot. So, and he's got his own little creatures. So it's basically all these battle scenes with all the different puppets and whatnot. I think it's really well done. It's lots of fun. This isn't high art cinema by any means, but if you like kind of like the small creature films, and especially if you like stop motion photography effects, a lot of the action scenes involving the puppets is using stop motion, especially when they're together. Very, very well done. Like I said, this is the that demonic creature right there. And it's great seeing like a bigger cast of the puppets in this film. Most of the rest of the human cast are all kind of throwaway. They're all bad actors. You'll see some people pop up in this film that you've seen in other places. There's the one guy, I
Well,
forget.
it's got Ian Ogilvy in it.
What's that?
Ian Ogilvy from Witchfinder General's in it.
Yes, that's one. There's another guy with the beard, and I'm trying to remember who he is or where he was from. Hold
Guy
on.
Rolfe.
That could be.
From loads of old horror films of the 60s. Guy Rolfe.
Yep. Yeah, there's all sorts of people in here. It's a lot of fun. These movies are fun. Like I said, after this film, it kind of the series went off the rails with this introducing this whole Nazism thing with the Nazi puppets and all that and whatnot. For me, I kind of lost interest after that, but the first five are really good. And I think this one is a lot of fun. Like I said, if you've seen four, this one picks up exactly right from there. So good stuff. Like I said, not big budget films, not high art, probably direct to video, but puppets versus an all new evil. Lots of fun. Puppet Master 5.
Gotta wonder, are they done with that series finally? Because it's been
No.
since
They made one
2018.
they made one a
It's been
couple
like
years
6
ago.
years.
Has it been
What?
6 years since that last one?
The
Yeah,
Littlest Reich is
The Littlest Reich.
2018.
Yeah.
I
Which
don't-
bizarrely was written by S. Craig Zahler from Riot and Cell Block 9, whatever it's called, and Dragged Across Concrete. He wrote that film.
It's not bad.
I just don't know why they doubled down on the Nazis so much. There's like 6 of those films about the Nazis.
Yeah.
And then the crossovers with the demonic toys, there's about
Demonic
3 of
Toys,
them. And
Yeah. So the guy I was thinking of in this film with the beard, who his name is Dwayne Whitaker. He's the guy who was in Pulp Fiction. He was the pawn shop owner. Zed.
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 Oh.
He plays Zed in Pulp Fiction. So when he
Zed's
pops
dead.
up in this film, you're like, oh, there's Zed. Zed's dead, right? His big claim to fame, right? So, but yeah, fun film. I enjoy the Puppet Master films, especially the early ones, quite a bit. But after a while, it's just like, all right, enough already. But especially like some of the puppets, I think are really, really well done. Like the Six Shooter one with the way he's got like the multiple arms and everything like that. He's loads of fun. And I always like Pinhead. He's always dropping down from somewhere else, and they always show like the camera as he's flying down. He's got this big body, and this tiny little pinhead. But yeah, it's good brainless fun if you like this.
It's fun to watch a stop motion too in anything.
Yeah, I love stop motion stuff. That's why for me, I think that's probably a lot of the appeal of the Puppet Master films is that they do use a lot of stop motion.
Have you seen the trailer for Beetlejuice? Beetlejuice, the second one. They're doing a lot of stop motion in it, so it matches the special effects from the original.
Wow, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. Although everything in the trailer is something from the original, which
Yeah.
why wouldn't I just watch the original then?
Yeah, it doesn't look
Looks like one of those
character-wise,
sequels.
it doesn't look exciting,
Yeah.
but I like that aspect of it.
So
Yeah, at
yeah,
least we're not getting an ugly Tim Burton CGI shitfest like Alice in Wonderland or something. But do we
yeah.
have Craig's picks?
Yes, I'm just going to grab them now. So his picks were Brain Scan and Scanner Cop.
I've seen
Ah,
Scanner Cop. It's not great, but do I say that
I
one was
remember the
Craig's
poster for Scanner Cop. The thing was
and
coming out of his eye or something towards you.
it's just ripping off Scanner's poster, but and Brain Scan's the one with Edward Furlong, isn't it?
Oh, you might be right. Yeah. I don't know if I've ever
Yeah.
seen either one of these. I'm not sure. Jamie, is that Wolf Blu-ray you have? Is that the indicator version?
Yeah, it's the indicator.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yes.
I
He
probably
got a almost an hour-long documentary too.
okay. Yeah, I have that on DVD. I've never replaced
I'm
it.
surprised you were going to pick it. I didn't think anyone was going to touch this one.
Yeah, it was my kind of like second choice. Yeah,
I think that is region free as well, that version. Because
Yes.
that's one of the very early Powerhouse indicator Blu-rays when they used to be region free.
Yeah, I'm actually shocked that I haven't bought it already because I had that on DVD and I know that's one that I've always wanted to. I got to make sure I don't already have it because that's happened a couple times of late where I bought something I already had. I did that with a Hammer film recently, which I had on one of the double packs from Screen Factory, and then I went and bought the indicator version. I'm like, ah, shit, I already have this. I'm like,
Yeah.
damn it.
Yeah, I've got a pile of stuff that I bought twice, either by accident or for.
Happens with me with CDs all the time.
Yeah.
I very rarely do it with music, but man, comic books and movies, yeah, I don't know. So for everybody watching, let us know what some of your favorite horror films are from 1994 and throw them down in the comment section
The
below.
shortest episode in Monsters Den history.
I don't know about in history, but in a long time, yes.
In a long time. Yeah.
In a long time, yes. So we've got a couple ideas, folks, for the next few episodes. We're going to be doing an episode on the video nasties, which we've kind of hinted at a few times here on the channel and kind of talked about, but not really in depth. And we're going to kind of break down. We're going to pick some of the films that were included in the list of the video nasties and maybe talk a little bit about why they're not really all that nasty, right? So that's coming up. We also, and I know a lot of people have asked for it, and we don't want to wait too long to do it. So we might do it next. We'll have to talk about it and to see. But we do want to do a show kind of paying tribute to Roger Corman because he's a major guy in this genre. And we all have lots of favorite Corman films. So we probably, I don't know. It probably makes more sense to do that next, but we'll figure it out. So you'll either get one or the other in 2 weeks' time. So Roger Corman and the Video Nasties coming up here on the Monsters Den, as well as Davey, Dan, and I are going to do a quick little review show on the brand new Blu-ray release of Cat and the Canary, which just came out, and this was the silent classic from 1926. Davey, 29,
27.
27. I know it's somewhere around there, late 20.
Yeah.
Something like that. So that just came out, and we've all been enjoying that. So we're going to do a quick little review of that, and lots more to come here on the Monsters Den. Visit us on the web at www.seatranquility.org. We're on Facebook, we're on YouTube, all together, all the damn time.
All the
Please
damn
subscribe
time.
if you haven't already, and click on that notification bell so you get alert of all of our content as a post. And please do hit the like button before you leave. For Davy Gallagher and Jamie Laszlo, I am Pete Pardo. Thanks for watching us here on the Monsters Den. See you in 2 weeks, guys. Take care. Bye bye.